Alrighty, we got FPS games are already dead from Hydronator. Let me see.
The decline of the first-person shooter genre can kind of be just defined in 6 different factors. Now, don't you think it's really strange how the first-person genre used to be the king of the gaming industry, but
Yeah,
now it seems to be struggling? And today,
bro, it is struggling. Like, bro, so like just recently, I saw a game came out like a week ago or something like that, called Frag Punk, and I started watching it, and I was like, oh, it's another tac shooter. But honestly, upon watching it, it just looked like there's like a lot of stylistic things going on with Frag Punk, and it's like a decent tac shooter, but it literally looked like Counter Strike or Valorant with some wonky mechanics, like the sniper being able to like bounce every which way. That's like a simple little thing that either one of the other two games could have implemented in some other mode. Why do we need a third tac shooter? Yeah, I mean, understandably, competition is good for consumers. You know, it forces like the other games to like step their shit up. But like, why do we need to have yet another tac shooter that is about the same as other tac shooters? And the only differences are like there's a couple of guns with like some wonky mechanics. Like we need an entirely new game, and just to add a couple extra mechanics. Is this the creative like desolation that we have finally arrived at when it comes to FPS?
we're going to be exploring the decline of first-person shooters and why, as a gaming collective, our tastes have changed. Today, we're going to take a look at oversaturation, lack of innovation, and of
Yeah.
course, over-monetization, and much, much more. But let's explore why the once mighty and high first-person shooter genre appears to be waning. In the early 2000s, first-person shooter games dominated the gaming landscape.
Hell yeah, they did. I think my first person shooter, if it wasn't Duck Hunt, it would have probably had to have been either 007 GoldenEye on N64 or playing something on like the PlayStation 1 where it was Medal of Honor. One of those two. Those were my first like experiences with FPS. And then after that, I got an Xbox, I got Halo, and subsequently Call of Duty, and damn, those were the good old days.
Titles like Call of Duty and Battlefield and Halo really set the standard for multiplayer shooters. However,
Hmm.
over the past decade, we've definitely seen a significant shift in gaming trends.
Yeah.
For example, Battle Royale. Games like Fortnite and PUBG introduced the Battle Royale format to millions of players, taking attention away from traditional first.
And before PUBG and before Fortnite, it was PUBG, and before PUBG, it was H1Z1, and before H1Z1, it was Arma, and you could just keep going back. It was like an Arma mod that was like this like survival thing of Battle Royale of what we have today. And yeah, it's just, the Battle Royale is predominantly the main mode that people look for. It like the FPS genre is actually quite divided in terms of like what kind of modes there are willing to play, and it all depends on like what input they're on, like like controller versus keyboard and console versus computer and all that jazz. Um, you have like within the realm of shooter, you have battle royale, you have some sort of 5v5 or 6v6 thing to accomplish an objective in like an arena shooter type format. You have extraction shooter like Tarkov or Escape from Tarkov. What else? And then you have like the tactical shooter type of game mode, Counter Strike and Valorant. What else? Those are like the main modes, or at least the main competitive modes that people look for in terms of like shooting games.
first-person shooter titles. And I can't really see that disappearing anytime soon. You also have hero shooters, which are an evolution of first-person shooters, I guess.
Yeah.
Overwatch popularized it, and it's where you choose your character with a unique ability, which is actually something that first-person shooters are trying to adopt slowly but surely, where you add a layer of strategy missing from the classical FPS genre.
So the whole thing with the layer of strategy and Overwatch with abilities and shit. Abilities are in Overwatch to compensate for players' lack of aim and strategy. On the surface, it would seem that, oh, there's an extra level of strategy. But until you reach the competitive level where, you know, where like you have teams scrimming day in, day out, if you just solo queue or duo or trio or however Overwatch does it, people are running around like chickens with their heads cut off. All right? People cannot time their ults, their abilities, and everything every which way, like, to save their lives. It's just, it is what it is. So I'm just going to keep going.
This evolution in preference just shows a desire for more dynamic and varied gameplay mechanics. And of course you've got oversaturation and boredom. The first-person shooter market has become so oversaturated, and every year we see a new release that offers something similar with minimal changes.
Yep.
Call of Duty...
Because there's minimal changes, because it's, from a developer's perspective, it's so hard to innovate putting a reticle over a person. Period. How do you innovate that? The core gameplay is, you know, you move around, put the reticle on the guy. That's it. Now, compare that to a completely different genre. Hack and slash. Magic. Elden Ring. Monster Hunter. Devil May Cry. That is, those, within those games alone, you know, it's all like swords and magic and guns and all of this other shit. There is way more margin for innovation within those genres. Whereas whenever you think about like a gun, even just conceptually, there's not a lot of fascinating things going on. You point the thing, you shoot, and there's like instant death right there. You know, whether or not your shooter has like hit scan or projectiles. Like, how do you innovate that? It's just the core concept of shooting a gun. How do you innovate that? I mean, to innovate that, like, I mean, if you want to think about it in like real life, you can either innovate and like go down or go up. So what came before the gun? The bow and arrow, the musket. What else? The slingshot. You know, throwing rocks. What's the up version of guns? Well, it's bigger guns. It's bazookas. It's missile launchers. It's vehicles with guns. It's nukes. All right, so you can kind of think about it like in both ways in terms of just technological like advancements, you know, according to like realism. But I would argue that there are other game genres that have innovated shooting games, and they're just wholly like they just do a better job of it. And I'll just talk about it later.
See, the poster child for lack of innovation, brings out annual releases with minor updates that have led to franchise fatigue. Players are bored with the repetitive nature because the games are basically the same every single year, just with a new coat of paint.
Yep.
There was a time...
Not only is it a new coat of paint, the core mechanics that you used to love and you didn't pay attention to in the past have now been broken down to such a minuscule, granular level that whenever you go into a game and you have to level up a gun, and the gun isn't even as good unless you have all the best attachments, and all the best attachments are at the end of the level up system, you will quickly realize that just your entire shooting experience has been warped, and everything that you used to love about shooting games has been taken away from you for the devs to only give it back to you.
Where Call of Duty wanted to innovate with Advanced Warfare. Although it wasn't everyone's cup of tea, they were still branching out and trying new things. But it seems like in recent years they're really trying to play it safe and basically just release the same thing every year. And this constant influx of similar games being released just leads to boredom, and you can't even distinguish one game from another when you boil them down to it. And although Battlefield doesn't really bring out as many titles as Call of Duty does,
Battlefield has done a pretty decent job around the 30v30, gigantic sandbox. Some of the buildings are destructible. The vehicles got like pretty decent mechanics, and so on and so forth. I'm not talking about like modern day Battlefield 2042, because that is supposedly, from what I hear, like a dumpster fire. It's not like horrible, but it could have been better. The main thing I hear from Battlefield is everybody wants destruction. Everybody wants better vehicle combat. Quit messing around with the aiming of certain inputs. Fix the recoil. Everybody generally likes the ballistics of Battlefield. Everybody generally likes the movement of Battlefield. It's just the game itself has not taken advantage and worked around the things that make it unique.
as there are some similar issues here with incremental improvements rather than just groundbreaking changes. Because destructible environments are not innovative anymore. Games like the Finals are doing it very, very well.
Well, yeah, because the guys that made the Finals initially came from Battlefield. So, surprise, surprise, the Battlefield bros bring the destruction into their game because they realize it's a good enough mechanic to add a level of randomness to the game, and everybody is pretty on board with it because it fits into the narrative of man versus environment.
And it's not exactly a selling point anymore. And you can't forget the lack.
I would still say destructible environment, destructible buildings is a pretty good selling point because you have Battlefield in the Finals. What other FPSs are taking advantage of destruction like that? There was this one that, what was it? It was an old PlayStation 2 or 3 game. Or was it PlayStation 4? I think it was called like Black or something. I'd have to go look at it again. But the main shtick with that one was, again, destruction, building destruction. But you could literally just take like an LMG, like shoot the entire building out from underneath you, and it'll just like fall. And yeah, I remember playing that game, and that game was so good. And there's a lot of older FPSs that deal with like building destruction, so it's not like those old IPs are like really relevant today. So like building destruction has been a thing in the past. It wasn't just Battlefield utilizing it. But Battlefield just happens to be the only IP that has stuck around forever, and that's like a main feature
Of innovation. Innovation has really kind of taken a back seat in recent first-person shooters. As I mentioned before, Call of Duty and Battlefield, both franchises that have stuck to their roots with little deviation. And I mean...
yeah, for Call of Duty, there was that a couple years where they tried to go like aerial with wall running and double jumping and all that shit to try to combat everybody leaving for Titanfall. But it was kind of half and half on whether or not people like that one, those Call of Duties. And then, what was it? And then after those, they decided, oh, our sales are going down. We need to put boots back on the ground because everyone's bitch moaning and complaining because it's so hard to aim up, or it's hard to aim at faster targets in the air. What else? Battlefield. I mean, just with what Battlefield 2042, don't you have like items like a little glider or like a grappling hook that you have in there to add more movement to a game?
They are really stuck down there. And this is leading to a predictable and stale gameplay experience, where no matter what, if you're playing Modern Warfare 3 or if you're playing Call of Duty Cold War, you're basically playing the same thing.
Yeah.
And with Overwatch, it initially innovated. For the first couple of years, it really tried to make sure that the gameplay experience felt really fresh. But in recent times,
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't there because I wasn't really interested in Overwatch 1. I mean, I understand the importance of Overwatch 1 and how it, drove a big part of the FPS industry with like abilities and hero shooters, and they had the whole 6v6 thing. Now it's 5v5. But the main thing that was implemented into Overwatch was the holy trinity of Blizzard, which is tank, healer, DPS, which is traditionally an RPG mechanic, on just how to do group content, but to implement that in an FPS fashion, I think they did it pretty well, but it's just they never were able to like balance out, certain characters with everybody. Again, like the balance of the game is a big linchpin in the success and the staying power of a lot of these FPSs.
with the cancellation of its single player mode and overall the mess that Overwatch has become with Overwatch 2, it's really struggled to maintain its freshness over recent years and has led a lot of players to just abandon the game entirely. And developers really seem to hesitate to take risks, and new titles often just feel like updates to pre-existing games.
Developers are scared to take risks. Developers are scared to take risks when it comes to modifying the core gameplay aspects of their game. They are not afraid to take risks whenever it comes to the game store of your favorite free-to-play FPS game.
Monetization strategies have also contributed to the decline of first-person shooter games. And I actually have a whole video based around loot boxes, so if you want to go check that out, link will be in the description below, or there'll be a card up top. But microtransactions and loot boxes, less so loot boxes these days, they've kind of disappeared after Battlefront 2. Loot boxes are kind of a thing of the past at this point. If you do see them nowadays, they are completely cosmetic and they don't really...
Loot boxes have never added any value or enjoyment to any game that they were implemented in, ever. A game is never better because they added loot boxes into it.
Add anything to the overall gameplay experience and make you better because you have a certain weapon.
No.
Most of the time,
if you want to make players feel pride and accomplishment, then you need to have some pretty decent skins in the game that they can just earn. You can have some skill-based achievements to work forward to. You can have some time-based achievements that you can have players work forward to. Pick your poison.
Nowadays they are completely cosmetic. It doesn't change the fact that they were an incremental part in developers pushing monetization into games. And now they can't do it one way, they're gonna try another. DLCs are kind of a thing of the past at this point and instead have been swapped out for battle passes.
Yeah.
But again, it's an evolution of the monetization scheme. Constantly pushing paid content has made players feel like they need to spend more money to enjoy the full game. Because you're not experiencing everything that you need to in Call of Duty if you haven't got a Nicki Minaj skin. And it's really kind of sad because this focus...
Wait, I gotta hear something again.
...to spend more money to enjoy of the monetization scheme. Constantly pushing paid content has made players feel like they need to spend more money to enjoy the full game. Because
that is what the developer is pushing. You need to pay money in order to enjoy the game. So what's the opposite of that? Don't pay money. Play the game and get good at the game. Then you will feel some pride and accomplishment from getting good at the game. There you go.
Because you're not experiencing everything that you need to in Call of Duty if you haven't got a Nicki Minaj skin. And it's really kind of sad because this focus on monetization over player experience has really kind of driven everyone away from their games. Nowadays we're kind of just seeing bare bones content, and back in the day with DLCs, developers and publishers had a paid obligation to give us good, consistent content.
And so the main thing that I was going to talk about before, in terms of innovation in FPS, I think this is one of the easiest layups that you could make as an FPS developer. You just need to get your head out of your bubble that is the game you're developing on and go play other games. Find out how other games innovate and make their game fun and add it into your game. So look at Warframe. Yes, Warframe is not an FPS. Yes, it's a third person. But if you want to incorporate a third person mode into your game, that would be good. Look at some of the old Call of Duties. They had a first person mode and they had a third person mode. Me and my buddies, whenever we played old school, what was it, like Modern Warfare 3, but like OG Modern Warfare 3, there was this mode called third person one in the chamber. We all loved the shit out of that game mode, because it was so far different than your standard jump in 5v5 TDM domination or whatever. And because it was so different, that's what made it so fun, because it's like you're still playing the same game, but you have a fresh take on it. So even old FPSs got this right. Look at Halo 2 and 3 with Forge. Okay? There were a ton of new game modes that came out of Forge in Halo. And even the old Call of Duties, there were a ton of just wonky game modes that you could play. Look at Zombies. What else? You have like all the different modes of like domination, fucking territories, king of the hill, moving king of the hill, hard point, capture the flag, a ton of different things. Like more different game modes to keep your player invested in the game. Okay? And also add multiple ranked modes of your game. It doesn't always have to be like your standard, like let's look at battle royales. You take Apex, for example. Your standard mode is either pubs threes or pubs duos, or you just queue solo, or you do rank threes, there is no rank twos. You do, it's just ranked. You just solo queue ranked, which is a meme, and just, or 3-stack ranked. Yeah, there's a couple like limited time modes that they have on rotate, but I would argue that that's fucking stupid. Just leave all the modes in and just let players play whatever game they want. Let players play whatever mode they want. That's where a lot of FPSs fail. Pigeonholing a lot of the player base to play one specific mode, even if it is just like a ranked mode. Like, oh, I really enjoy playing ranked threes. That's all I play. Well, that's fine. Okay, but that's you. There are other players that want to play a ranked mode of a different mode, or they just want to play pubs and just hang out and just play some whatever bullshit mode. Yeah. But going back to Warframe, what is it? I think Warframe greatly innovated the shooting genre. Look at the movement of Warframe. I think the movement of Warframe is fantastic. Anytime there is a game that comes out, or an FPS that comes out, the movement system will always be compared to Warframe because Warframe does it the best. All that slide canceling bullshit that you have in Call of Duty, go jump in Warframe. See how fluid and awesome it feels to slide jump, bullet jump, like do the little slow down thing in the air while you can aim. You can wall run. You can wall bounce back and forth. You can wall climb. You can climb a wall, hold a point on it. You can just jump up vertically like a shit, like high as fuck. What else? You have a bunch of different like ships. You have skateboards. You have horses. You have an entire space mode for your game. And look at the guns. This is where a lot of core gameplay concepts can come into play as far as FPS go. And this is what a lot of developers fail to wrap their minds around. When they design a gun, they think the gun has to have one primary mode of fire because it's going to be based in reality, and it's going to let's look at this pistol. It's got fucking 12 rounds. There's an aim down sight thing, and you left click or whatever to shoot the gun. There's nothing wrong with that. That's fine. But whatever happened to alternate fires of mode? Okay, what if I don't want to shoot one bullet at a time? What if I can just hit a button, change the alternate mode, and I just want to dump this shit? All right. Oh, but Cornel, the balance. Who gives a fuck about the balance? If you want to balance the gun, balance it around a rule set in a game mode. All right. Like when you come up with a ranked mode for your FPS, why is it that Super Smash Brothers does it the best? Okay? Look at competitive Super Smash, or just look at the regular game of Super Smash Brothers. There are so many items in the game. There are so many levels to have fun with. There's so many environmental things you can take advantage of for like levels. You know, if you like position yourself wrong, you can get fucked by the environment, or you could just get lucky and spawn like the little super hammer, and you just get like 4 or 5 KOs. All right, that's random. It's fun. It's whatever. All right, stuff like that is fun. So look at Warframe for movement. Look at what else? What other games do it right? Look at Borderlands when it comes to different types of guns. There's a lot of cool guns in Borderlands, dude. Okay. Also, look at some of these roguelikes. Some shooting games that are just roguelikes. See how they innovate gun mechanics. Look at something like Crab Champions. It's a really good little indie game, and there's a ton of different guns, a ton of different power-ups that you can like level up. And if you can, you know, reach like some level, like let's say like past level 30 on an island or something, maybe go to like level 60, and then the mechanics start to get really wonky. Yeah, you'll really see that your shooting game has grossly changed because you've just leveled up your gun in a bunch of wonky different ways. All right, a lot of FPS games are just so vanilla, like you said before. They're sterile, they're limp, they're weak.
Comparing current first-person shooter games to their peak, there is definitely a noticeable drop in content. Earlier FPS titles like Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 or Black Ops 1 or World at War offered extensive additions to the multiplayer, zombies, or Spec Ops modes.
Yeah.
Whereas in recent years, newer titles...
Spec Ops was fun as fuck in old Call of Duty. Why haven't we had something like that anymore?
often launch with limited content and promising future updates that may or may not fulfill player expectations. And usually by the end of the game's life cycle, many people feel like that's just how the game should have been when it launched, because that's how it used to be. And players feel like they're paying more but getting less, and therefore it's just leading to frustration and overall feeling like we're cheated out of an entire experience.
You are 100% right with the bare bones content point. 100%, dude. 100%. And outside of the content, I don't know if you're going to touch on it. If you are going to make an FPS and try to push a competitive mode of it, like a ranked mode or something, it's not enough to come out with a game and it have like a good game mode, a good core game mechanics, satisfying game mechanics. That's not enough. You need to come out with an all-encompassing anti-cheat system along with your game. Okay? Because the moment that your game gets popular, you start to invite cheaters into your game, and when FPS bros realize that they are getting cheated on in the upper ranks of their game, they will leave that shit quicker than fuck. Like, you know, if someone just farted in an elevator and they just like hit the emergency stop button, it's like, I gotta dip. All right? It is not enough to just be a good FPS game. You need to have a good anti-cheat system. And that's what a lot of these like FPS games are lacking.
And there's also the factor of price point. Despite offering similar experiences, the price of FPS games has remained high. You're basically paying £60 for recycled content. Gamers are asked to pay premium prices for what feels like recycled content with minimal innovation, and most of the time is just with a new coat of paint. And it really brings this value into question, because can you justify paying for the same game every single year?
No, you 100% can't. They can't justify it. They are banking on gamers being stupid and going off of the popularity factor. Oh, new game come out. This is the new popular thing. This is the new hotness. That's the old hotness over there. Nobody's really playing that anymore. This is the new hotness.
It's basically the same thing. Now, kind of moving away from multiplayer first-person shooters, because I feel like I've done that to death, and so has everyone else on YouTube, you also have to look at the first-person shooter single-player side of things. Because it's seen some varied success. Titles like Doom and Portal and BioShock offer compelling stories and innovative gameplays for...
This is on point. And I would also like to add that a lot of the old Call of Duties had pretty damn good campaigns, single-player campaigns. They're awesome. You mentioned BioShock. BioShock mechanics were fun. I don't care if BioShock feels stiff and clunky and there's abilities and all that other shit. It made up for that in so many other aspects of the game. 100%. Same thing with Doom. Doom 2016, Doom Eternal. That shit is so good.
All the time, keeping players engaged. And these games had so much love and care put into these titles, and they present interesting worlds and narratives that really set them apart from their multiplayer counterparts. Now, although I've said that, not every single first-person shooter single-player game does hit the mark, and this is quite evident. Now, there has kind of been a decline in single-player first-person shooter quality. Some games really still do capture the magic, but others just fall way beyond the mark. For example, Wolfenstein Youngblood and Far Cry 5 and 6, these games suffer from repetitive gameplay loops and uninspired world design. Often just, again, repackaging everything that we've had before without changing too much apart from maybe a setting here or there. But then there are also franchises like Duke Nukem and Rage, specifically Rage 2, that lacked the innovation and passion that made earlier first-person shooters great. And you could even argue that Destiny and Halo 5 Guardians, even though they have multiplayer elements, they often feel like they're going through the motions without offering anything new to players. And these games highlight a lack of creativity and devotion to the games that they're creating, and ultimately contributing to the first-person shooter fatigue that we are all experiencing. In conclusion, the decline of the first-person shooter genre can kind of be just defined in 6 different factors. Genre shifts, oversaturation, lack of innovation, over-monetization, on bare bones content and high prices for games that are just basically recycled experiences.
Yep.
Now, while some first-person shooters do innovate and they do engage their audiences,
There's a couple good ones out there, but there are few and far between.
many just don't hit the mark. And the FPS genre is really going to be defined by the developers. If they are willing to prioritize players and their engagement over profits and monetization, we might have something going there. But only time will really tell if first-person shooter games are really ready to reclaim their high and mighty glory that they once had. And so
I don't know, man.
for that, we're just going to have to wait and see. But now,
Yeah. I mean, I agree with a lot of these points. This man is spitting. Hydronator, go check him out. He's spitting facts. He cooking. But yeah. I mean, who knows if FPS can ever come back? Who knows, man? Your guess is as good as mine. But you know, it's always just nice to just talk about it at least. Figure out what some FPS are doing right, what they're doing wrong, where they can make improvements, and so on and so forth. But yeah, overall good video, and I want to see more. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me. I'll catch you guys on the next one. All right, later.